Hey everyone, thanks so much for joining us today. I'm Angela Stevens and I am with the podcast Refocus with Angela. And I have got such a cool guest. You're going to love meeting her and we're going to learn more about her. But her name is Alexandra Clark. And she is the Bon founder and founding chocolatier. And I am going to stop right there and just say, first of all, thank you so much for doing this, Alexandra. And can you tell us before we go any further what your company is and what your job is?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, also thank you for having me. I'm so excited about the work you do and so excited to be here because this is so important to me. Outside of chocolate, inside of chocolate, but chocolate's always been something I've been interested in. And I think a lot of people can say that. So the real question is like, how do you go from just like really loving chocolate to going down this like deep, dark, black hole of chocolate and then living it as your career and as your life? And
Yeah.
I started, my first job ever was at an ice cream store, and it was like a family owned ice cream store, and I loved it. And what I loved about it was not the ice cream necessarily, but the situation that people would be in where they were celebrating a baseball game win, or they were on a first date, or they were taking their grandma out. And it was really cool to be able to help somebody and be a part of those like special occasions. And so I had an opportunity in college to go and study abroad, and I became very interested in chocolate because I was in Scandinavia and in Europe and all of these amazing neighborhood chocolate shops there. And once once chocolate crossed my mind as a medium, there was no going back. It was what I
Yeah.
wanted to do the rest of my life.
And as I told Alexander, I love chocolate. If anybody knows me, they know I love chocolate. And so tell us, okay, so do you have a company that like has products that you sell to people or to companies, or tell us about how we can find some of your chocolate?
Yeah, both. So we have our in-store, like brick and mortar shops in Detroit. We have 5 of them sort of in that area. And then you can also go to bonbonbon.com and you can shop online and we can ship anywhere in the country. But we also do sell to other companies and sell wholesale or do weddings. And they're really unique in the sense that they're 2 polite bites. They're all the same shape and size, but they're filled with all kinds of different things. And we make bonbons as opposed to truffles because it allows you to sort of bend the rules of what usually would happen inside of a chocolate. And you can really taste and experience that. Like a lot of times, well, I think probably the most common comment we get is, I don't really like chocolate, but I like your chocolate. And it's
Oh,
just because the
awesome.
approach is entirely different in terms of the way that we're communicating a flavor in each piece that we make. So
Right.
we
Right.
have probably about 50 employees and we've been around about 10 years now. And it's an amazing team of people that are all really dedicated to this idea of making sincerely good chocolate for good people everywhere.
I love that. So you got to tell us, first of all, so what brought you to this journey of working in this? Because you grew up in a family, right? That was a chocolate loving family as well,
Oh,
right? Yeah.
yeah. I think it's just that nobody ever told me not to. I
Yeah.
think that, I mean, my parents are like pretty alternative, and my grandpa, who was probably the most conservative person in my family, was the biggest chocolate lover of all of them. So when I really started looking at it as a career, there was there was really no resistance. There was
Interesting.
no like, oh, maybe are you sure you don't want to be an accountant? Or like, are you sure that you don't want, they were like, yeah, chocolate sounds great. Like, go
Oh,
for it.
that's fantastic. So
Yeah.
tell us, all right. So on a normal day, all right. So every day, getting up and going into the office and doing your job. So is it stressful? And if so, if you go in on a day that you're not focused, how do you focus on a daily basis?
If I don't do anything, yes, it is stressful. So I focus through so many ways, but I think in the morning, like going into work, the most important thing is that I have a personal checklist and then I have a professional checklist, and I complete everything on those 2 checklists because it makes the rest of my day so much easier. So really nothing happens unless those checklists get done. And
Mhm.
I can do a long version or I can do a short version. To be totally honest, like I know that I can whip through it if I really have to,
Yeah.
but at least the thing that's most stressful to me is that feeling of of undoneness, the unknown of being like, I don't know if I did that, or am I maybe leaving somebody like, am I leaving them hanging because I haven't actually answered that because I didn't remember to do
Yeah.
it?
Yeah.
And so if it is something I'm finding like really does need to be attended to on a daily basis, then it goes on that checklist. And the checklist is physical, it's tangible, it's on paper, because that needs to be. I keep a to-do list separate that I can add things to that's digital.
And it's
But
interesting that you say that because we actually have to-do list legal pads that are amazing because they go with our calendars, but and they have two sides. So, but I have and I'll send you one. But I've got a question for you. So, do you make that list at night or in the morning, or when do you make that list?
so the list doesn't change from day to day. I do it every day, including on weekends.
Mhm.
And yeah, I do it first thing in the morning. So I will add things to my digital checklist throughout the day. But one of the things that I do in the morning is check that digital checklist and decide what really needs to go
Yeah.
into this list. So
Yeah.
it's the same thing with my calendar. It's like that's one of those things. Review your calendar, review your task list. If I know if I have like a 4 a.m. flight or something insane, yeah, I'll do it the night before just so I can wake up and head out the door. But I
Yeah.
like to do it in the morning because it also includes things like getting my yoga in or doing a cold plunge or other things that I know make me feel really good throughout the rest of the day.
So cold
So,
plunge, that's awesome. I don't do those. That sounds
oh yeah, my
yeah.
husband got me into it. That's another deep, dark black hole. Once you get into it, it's hard to not do it anymore, but it's hard to get into, literally and
He is
figuratively.
my kind of person, chocolate and cold and going all the time, definitely. So tell me, I was reading a little bit about your background and there was like an accident or something that helped you to kind of go this direction. Can you share that with us?
Yeah, I had been doing research for the Department of Agriculture at Michigan State, and I was interviewing people at this Sweets and Snacks Expo in Chicago. And then I was leaving to go meet up with some friends that were in Chicago for dinner. And I was in a cab, and we were T-boned by an SUV who made a left on a red light and threw us into the oncoming traffic in the other direction. And so it was like a 4 or 5 car pileup, um, and everybody was hurt. Everybody heard something. And I damaged my face and my jaw and had a head injury. And it was awful. I was supposed to go live on a cacao plantation that summer in Grenada, and I was so excited for it. Of course, I spent the summer in the hospital instead. But
Wow.
it did give me the money to really like pursue this dream that I was working on of opening my own chocolate shop and studying under other people that otherwise I don't think I would have had the opportunity to study under.
Right.
So I did use the money. I called it my bloody money. And I think it's a great way to start a business because I didn't want any of that money. It wasn't like a risk. It was like,
Yes.
please get rid of this money. I hate this money. I want it gone. And so spending it on that beginning inventory and equipment and things like that meant that it was out of my hands. And that actually felt very, very good. And there was a certain sense of relief in seeing it. Now, of course, it's come back and it's come back, many-fold,
Yeah.
but it doesn't have that same feeling to it anymore. And I oftentimes wonder if I would have been willing to be as risky or take the chance on opening my business when I did, if I hadn't had that experience. And if it had been funded in another way, I might have been more careful rather than reckless with
Yeah.
that spending.
You
I
know,
mean,
I
the recklessness worked out, but but you know what I mean.
I do. I started my first business with $3,000 and I would never recommend anyone to do that, but
Yeah.
you do it, right? You just get up and you do it,
Yeah.
and then I funded this business as well. So I think if you have the drive, and you've got to make something happen and you want to make it and you're living for something, right? You want to do that.
Yeah.
So tell me something. So this happens that you get your, funding for your company and you've gotten, all of your employees, your equipment. What's the hardest thing in running a business like this?
In running a business, I think the hardest thing and my favorite thing are actually kind of the same, is that it's always changing. Like my role at my company has changed so much, and it changes from week to week or month to month, or even, from one day to the next, you'll realize that worked yesterday and it doesn't work now today.
Mhm.
And I think that constant change means your systems behind it are also constantly changing, and getting used to change and comfortable with change like that is hard. It's
Yeah.
just, it sort of leaves you navigating it probably forces you to focus on a higher level conceptual
Mhm.
um interest, like, why am I actually doing this? It forces you to say that and align with that, which I think is a good thing. But sometimes that change is surprising. And sometimes that change is hard for other people around you to handle, even though you're getting used to it.
Yes.
So there's that part of it too,
Mhm.
is taking on additional people and helping them feel comfortable in that same entrepreneurial environment where one day we're doing this and the next day it might be or just feel very different than the day before.
Yeah.
So I do like it because it means that there's like interesting creative problems constantly. So there's always something to really like attach to and kind of hyper focus on that's like candy, where you just want to like you just want to be like, oh, how do we do this? How do we do this? How do we do this? But it's also a challenge on the flip side is there's a lot of like red tape and boring things that go along with that are constantly getting reshuffled too, where you're like, oh, great, we really have to review this again, or, send these out again, or the stuff that's not as much fun is hard to keep putting in new piles all the time.
Right, right. So you're more on the artsy side then as well, too, right? I
Yeah.
mean, you've got that creativity side, and that's what I think a lot of people have a hard time focusing is when they are creative and they do the creative part really, really well, but the business part of it, they struggle. And so I always say, my advice to people is to always find your weakness and to find people that can be in those roles to help you and then to delegate that, and I think that's really important. But when you're starting out, you might be with a small crew. And so,
Yeah.
it's I always say it's the joy is in the journey, right? Of getting
Yeah.
to where you want to be, And now how long has your business been going?
It'll be 10 years old in July of this year.
In 10 years old. Wow, that's really
Yeah.
exciting. So,
Yeah,
um,
it is. It's almost unbelievable.
it is, I mean,
Yeah.
really it is because somebody would, you think, and how do you, how do you start that? How do you get into that? And that's actually one of my questions too, is how does somebody become a chocolatier?
There's really no real one school for it. And chocolate, even though it sounds like so specific, there's different things that you can do even within this genre. So the
Yeah.
best way to learn it is by working for other people.
Mhm.
And I mean, to this day, I still am learning it from asking other people who are now my peers. But the nice thing about chocolate as an industry is that it's not a common career path for people. So if
Mhm.
you're willing to prove that you're really serious to learn about it and you're really sincerely interested and being respectful, people are really receptive to that and very willing to help. It's an
Right.
industry that craft chocolate specifically is an industry where everybody wants to see each other succeed.
Yeah.
That it's not like, it's not sort of like you have this much market share and I have this,
Mhm.
it's it's a multi-billion-dollar industry and we're
Right.
this tiny little percentage of it, we'd love to take over more. And because of that, it does feel sort of, as much as being an entrepreneur can feel solo and isolating, it's nice to be in an industry like that, especially when you're learning, because
Mhm.
people are so open to taking you in and sharing their knowledge, whether you're at the very beginning of learning about it, or even now when I know quite a bit, but I'm now operating a business that's much bigger than any of the chocolate shops I worked at.
Yeah.
And so I'm in new territory, and it means I have to reach out to new people who I trust who are also in the industry and say, how did you do this?
Yeah.
Or what would you have done differently when you did do that? Because I know you did, or am I thinking of this wrong? And I think if you really dive deep into any industry that people are really passionate about, you find that people are that way and they're just thrilled to have somebody else around them that speaks the same language and is excited to learn.
Absolutely. Somebody said one time it can be lonely at the top, and I never knew what that meant. Now, and I do now. But there was actually a program with we're a woman-owned company, and so we went to the WBDC, and I attended several of their programs that they had, and it was interesting because everyone that's a business owner kind of faces a lot of the same challenges, right? But yet we
Yeah.
stay, back here a little bit, and once you start sharing and teaching others and learning, it's really a rewarding journey and a rewarding experience, so tell us, I'm curious, so what makes your chocolate different than others? Like why? Because we don't have, first of all, and by the way, I just want to make a note. So you said that you were in an accident and you had if you can see if you're listening to this, she's absolutely stunning. And when you see this on video, you'll see you could never think anything's ever happened to her. So she's
Yeah.
absolutely beautiful. So anyway, go ahead. I wanted to ask you that. But a lot of people might be thinking, okay, I wonder, how she is. And but she looks
Oh yeah, no, much better. I have had so much maxillofacial and plastic surgery to look like myself.
yeah.
I honestly like that process was so fascinating too, because that's also an art and a science.
Yeah.
And it was really inspiring to me to watch other people at such a high skill level work in a way. They saw me, they took one look at me, and my own mom said I looked like a pterodactyl. And
Oh,
the first look that my maxillofacial surgeon took at me, he's like, "Oh, we're gonna have you looking exactly the same, if not way better." Like with 100% confidence. He was just like, "Oh,
yeah.
this is nothing. I got this." And we were like, "Are you sure?" Like we walked out of
Oh,
there.
that's so comforting, though,
Must
really.
be crazy. Yeah,
That's
totally.
that's
And they
so
were
comforting.
right. They were, yeah, I very much feel like I look like myself. So yeah.
Yeah, and I
Proud
can
of the
see
other people.
I can actually see where you would uh be almost afraid or shy to go out into public and even to um connect with people. So I commend you for that because a lot of people even sometimes with whether it's a disability, it's not always visual, right? So even when you got
Yeah.
better, they didn't realize that maybe you were still struggling in certain areas, right? You know,
Yeah,
but
totally. I almost think sometimes it can be more difficult in that sense. I still have, and I can't totally figure out why, but I still have a hard time calling people on the phone. Whereas I
mm,
used to love to call people on the phone, and I can do it. I just have to do like a warm-up phone call before
mhm.
I like really get going on a day of actual phone calls. And I think it's because my voice, they'd be like, "What'd you say? What'd you say?" Because I had lost so many teeth.
Oh,
So
really? Oh,
you would
wow.
hear, they'd be like, "What was that? What was that?" And I was so sick of being on the other side of the line where they couldn't tell anything was wrong with me. Whereas if I was in person, they're like, "Oh, clearly something happened to you." But
Right.
on the phone, it was different. And so I think it just like planted the seed, and it's hard to get, you're right. It's hard to get rid of those things once they're planted in your mind in a certain way.
Yeah, definitely. So I want to ask you something about that. So if you come across someone today, like anyone listening to this, and they met someone that had been in an accident that has something visually wrong with them, or not wrong, but visually,
Yeah.
in a temporary state, what is the best thing to say to that person?
Well, little kids were always the best for me because
No, no, they're
it,
they're
they
not
would
so
just
nice.
say, "What happened to your face?" And you knew, like with adults, like it was very obvious. And adults would try not to say anything and then stare me directly in the eyes, and then kind of like peek when they thought I wasn't looking. And that felt really weird, where it's like you can just say something, or then it felt like it was on me to be like, "Oh, I was in an accident." But maybe they weren't thinking that, so you don't know. Whereas little kids would just be like, "What's wrong with your face?" And I was like, I was in an accident, and it was
Mm,
very good to like make sure you wear your seatbelt, like, and at least you could go
right.
down that. So just know it's okay to say, like, there was one woman, I was still working at this ice cream shop, and she was like, "Oh, honey, it looks like you were in quite an accident." And it was so sweet the way she said it. I was like, "Thank you for just acknowledging it." Yes, I was.
Yeah, that
And
you're not visible, that you're not
yeah.
visible.
And we could just skip to the next question when she's like, "How's it all going? Like, what happened to you and what's going on now? And how are you doing?" And have a
Yeah,
much more normal conversation than prefacing your entire conversation on ignorance.
right.
Like this,
Yes.
because then nobody ever really connects.
Yes, absolutely. And it's interesting because I sit here and I listen to you and I look at your background and I always say, turn the bad to good, right? And
Yeah.
you took something, that could have been very tragic for you emotionally, and, financially, emotionally, physically. But look, you've turned it into this amazing company with a product that people love, right?
Thank
And
you.
so, yeah,
Look at
absolutely.
us. Yeah.
So yeah, so I mean, that's really inspiring in itself, right? Like right there. But I didn't let you answer, and I did ask you, what makes your chocolate different than others? Like, what is it about your chocolate that people will say that is my favorite?
I think it's easiest to understand when you try it, but we call them bonbons. The idea being that a bonbon is like a goodie, and a bonbon is a truly good bonbon. And to make it that way, it's a lot about the ingredients that are in it. So we're extremely focused on the ingredients that we use and the flavors that we're portraying through it, which means that there's not really room for us to add in things like additional preservatives or you'll find that it's extremely flavorful when you bite into it, that it's something that you're like, oh, whoa, like what is going on here? It's not like, oh, there's a hint of this. You're like, this tastes like biting,
Wow.
in these 2 bites, I've just experienced a whole piece of key lime pie. Like, I don't know how that just happened. It's sort of that kind of a chocolate experience.
Wow.
Um, and everything is very much designed for the experience that you'll have. So when you order Bon Bon Bon, they come in a box and they're all labeled, so you know which one is which. So you can actually kind of walk through that experience. Or a
Yeah.
lot of us have food allergies, myself included. So it's really nice to know what you're eating so
Yeah.
that you can dodge the things that maybe are not okay for you. And and it's really set up to be an experience either for yourself or an experience with somebody else. And I love it as a gift because it's something that is really nice. And there's been a lot of love put into it. It's continually improving. Like our recipes continually improve. Everything about it, we're always trying to make better. And it's so nice to send something to somebody that they can just use up and enjoy. It's
Yeah.
just you can just eat that. You don't have to keep it forever. You don't have to, you can just, here's something that you can really enjoy. And it's hard at first because you don't know like what people's favorites are going to be, and everybody has a different favorite.
Yeah.
But um, but yeah, I love watching people take a bite of a bonbon for the first time, because like a bonbon from Bon Bon Bon, because I think they have in their idea this like chocolate that they grew up on, that they've always had. And then what we do is just something completely different.
That is
It's
so
really a whole other planet of where chocolate can go.
right. Absolutely. And it's a great gift. It's a great gift for someone, right? I
Yeah,
mean,
it's a really, to me, that's like the most, I love when people do it for weddings because we can really customize a lot more than most chocolate shops. And so that makes it really fun. And I love when people give it as a gift because because of that experience, when somebody has it for the first time, they're like, oh, look, a box of chocolate. And then they try it and they're like, oh.
yeah,
And
definitely.
yeah, we take it very seriously that when people trust us with that honor, we're up for that challenge.
Awesome. Now, where are you based at?
We're based out of Detroit.
Yeah.
So we
Okay.
started in Hamtramck, Michigan, which is this little tiny town inside of the city of Detroit. And
Mhm.
now we have 5 shops that are kind of all around the city of Detroit, all the way out to Ann Arbor, Michigan.
Awesome. But again, we can get those online. So we'll put a link in the show notes to tell everyone where they can get them. What is your favorite kind?
I'm really into right now, it's sort of just switched. I love mustachio. It's a Moscato wine caramel and pistachio gianduja. Gianduja is sort of like a nut butter mixed with chocolate. And there's something about this piece. It's in a dark chocolate shell, and it feels so classic while also feeling like it feels almost familiarly classic, but it's not. And
Wow.
that's what's cool about it, is that like this feels so right together, but I've never had it before. So
Wow. And
so I
what's
really,
interesting is most people would say, "Oh, it's this one," and to hear you describe your chocolate is amazing. It really is. You probably don't even know that, but it really. I mean, I'm sitting here going, "Wow!" I mean, I'm just picturing this, and it just shows how much you take the time and effort to make it perfect.
oh yeah, yeah, we're really, and it's not just me. There's a whole group of people that I mean, some work at Bon Bon Bon, some are customers, but we, yeah, we're constantly thinking about it, and there's always improvements. And somebody will try something halfway across the world and we'll be like, we need it. We have to have it because it's the only thing that would make this do this thing that we've always wanted it to do. And it can be as simple as the way, the time and the taste experience when the salt hits you. Oh, I had the salt where the flavor didn't hit you until later. And we're like, well, we need that salt because we've been trying to do that with it. So
Right.
yeah, it's,
Exactly.
and it will never end like that. That's just built into how a bonbon at Bon 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 is made.
I love that. So tell us, and I know you're going to be on our careers podcast, but tell us about your staff. Like how many, like you have 50 people, but what did they do there?
Oh yeah. So I have a management team that's directing, operations, or they're directing creative or marketing. And then underneath that, there's like retail, and then there's production. So I deal a lot with new product development and the creative side and production. And then we have Annie, who's in charge of operations. And so that's like more retail. and also goes into production and shipping and all of the, ins and outs. So
Yeah.
we will work sort of on a project basis on different things together. And then it's fun for me because I'm not always working with the same people all the time on the same thing.
Mhm.
And but it's a team of people who are all very good, I mean, better than me at what they do. And that makes it extraordinarily interesting because they come with all kinds of new insight too. And I get to learn from them what they think about that and how,
Because
how are you approaching that? Oh my gosh, that's so like, yes, okay, like how can I help? So I
because you
really feel
think, where can our company go? And if you have great
yeah,
people that you can rely on who have the same passion and the same energy and excitement, it's limitless, right? What you can do.
100%. I really find them to be inspiring in terms of, yes, it is my job to determine the direction that we're going, but
Mhm.
determining that is really inspired by the talents that they have. I feel like, oh my gosh, well, we could do it is, you get the sense of like, oh my gosh, well, we could do anything. So if anything is possible, then let's go here. Let's do this.
Right, exactly. Yeah, it's funny. When you talk about shipping, I always tell people when we've been on Amazon for like 6 years, I believe, with our company Refocus, the creative office. And when COVID hit, we got an email saying your products are not an essential item, therefore you have to ship them out overnight. We knew nothing. We knew nothing about UPS, FedEx, and packaging and weights and all of this stuff. And
Yeah.
that could put somebody out of business right there. But
Oh,
I said you turn the bad to good, and so we learned it, and now we have our own drop shipping station nationwide. So
that's
yeah,
awesome.
it is really exciting. So that's what I'm saying is, you when you come into conflict, it's how you respond to it that really can impact your business and impact your team as well. Because you're the leader, right? You're the one. You're the founding chocolatier, as we said earlier. And that holds a lot of responsibility, but it sounds like you are amazing to be a part of your team.
Oh, well, I would hope so. And I would hope they told me if I wasn't. So
Exactly. No.
yeah.
So, well, listen, I could talk to you all day long, but I wanted to ask you one major question because, again, your job sounds amazing, right? But I'm sure it's not all fun all the time, right?
Oh,
There's
yeah. No, no.
there's challenges, right? And so, but I always ask everyone this question, and I always say this, on those days that it's just not, you're not there, you're not focused, you're not there, it's just one of those days, but you get in your car or you take the train or wherever you're at and you're going to that meeting, but you've got to have game on. What is the name of the song or the genre or the artist that you listen to?
This is the easiest question of the whole podcast. And it's I Want to Dance with Somebody by Whitney Houston. And I
Awesome.
always say, with a cup of tea and that song, I can do anything.
Wow, that's amazing. I love her. I love her.
I love her too.
That's amazing, and that's great. And I think at the end of the day, and you and I just started talking, but it seems like at the end of the day, you have to enjoy life, right?
Yeah.
And with everything that you've gone through, I mean, my goodness, I mean, you are a perfect example of someone that could have just given up or turned away, but you turned it to good and you made this amazing company with an amazing product that people love. And if that's not enough to get you going every day, then let me be your first customer on that one. So
Well,
anyway,
thank
well,
you. That's a huge compliment from you, and I really appreciate it.
absolutely, absolutely. So we will put your website up. We'll let everyone know where to find you. But I graciously thank you so much for coming on our show. We graciously appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you.